One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question, where we highlight executive leaders in college athletics. Our guest today is Pennie Parker. Pennie is the Director of Athletics at Rollins College, and she's been in that role since 2006. Greetings, Pennie. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, Ty. I'm happy to be here.
Now, Pennie, you've been in college athletics for 26 years, and being in something for that amount of time, you learn a lot. You see a lot of various types of leaderships and how things should be done and shouldn't be done. I want to point out here that you are the chair of the NCAA Division II Management Council. You serve on the NCAA Legislation Committee. You're on the board of directors at Women Leaders in College Sports and the past president of the Division II Athletic Directors Association. So you do a lot and know a lot, right? And probably know a ton of people and a lot about what's going on in college athletics. And I guess the question I have for you is in terms of all those roles, right? What methods of leadership, organizational structure, help you to execute the role as chair or the role as president or on boards, and then simultaneously do what I think, and I guess you'll agree, is the most important job is serve the student athletes as a director of athletics there at Rollins College. How do you do all that at a high level?
Well, thank you, Ty. I would say that, as you said, serving the student athlete is key to the role that I have here and to what we do in athletics. But I think things that have helped me execute being on boards and being the chair of certain groups and then, the president of organizations is just the key critical component is, of course, is my staff here. And then for the other boards and other, like being the chair of the NCAA, their staff is also just an excellent support system for those people in those positions. But my staff here, I'm fortunate that I've been with these people for many, many years, and I'm able to delegate a lot when I'm not here to them, and they're great independent thinkers, and they're comfortable in their roles, and I know that they are prepared to make decisions while I'm not here. So I think that gives me at least the peace when I'm away to know that things are being handled in the office while I'm not in the office. And then, when things, you can't always delegate everything. So I've tried to be mindful when I'm back in the office and carve out small time periods in the day to work on those issues. I always have the open door policy. So I always try to have my inbox clean before I get to my chair in the morning so I can be my best self for anybody that needs me as soon as I walk in the office.
I'd imagine that in your time serving on committees, from whenever you were on your first committee or first board, and then to now as your chair and you've been president of various associations, how has that helped you with what you do there at Rollins or just in your career in terms of executing high-level decisions and doing things as a leader?
That's a great question, and I think you touched on it in the very beginning when you said you build your network, and I think what I've learned from sitting on those boards and even just being a committee member is, making contact with people that you respect in the industry and learning from them, because I certainly don't have all the answers, and it's always comforting for me to be able to call somebody that I've worked with on one of those committees that I've grown to respect and know in a larger capacity and say, hey, I'm walking through this. Can you help me? What are your thoughts? What would you do in this situation? And I've learned so much from the people that I've worked with on these boards and these committees. And I've tried to tell my student athletes when I get back here that it's important to serve, even on our SAC, because you're going to learn from the other student athletes on that committee about how they manage their sport and how they manage their time and how they set goals. So I think it's just a cyclical example that they can learn from as well.
Right now you're the chair, NCAA Division II Management Council, you're NCAA Legislation Committee, and of course past president, and a number of other things throughout your career. Is there a fair amount of overlap in terms of keeping things in order when you prepare to go into these meetings for these committees and prepare to now, I guess, as chair or as president, you're moderating discussions? Is there a fair amount of overlap in terms of what's important for these various committees?
I would say that yes, there is a fair amount of overlap with issues and different things that we discussed on the boards and and on management council and maybe even in women leaders, although they don't get as necessarily involved in the legislative piece of what we do. But there is a lot of overlap, and I would say that the preparation is the key piece of the overlap, and that would be just, how do I prepare to go into these meetings? Well, they all have agendas, and they all have materials, and they all have, the takeaways that we're going to discuss and work through while we're there. So I think it's just learning to navigate those efficiently as well, and that comes, I think, with service and practice of being on those committees and preparing to go to those meetings.
That is an interesting question. You bring it up. It's preparation. How do you, do you get folders and documents and just a volume of information for each committee and each organization that you have to read, process, think about, develop opinions on, and then you go into it? What is your preparation for these different responsibilities you have?
Well, and that is true. You do get on some committees you get volumes of information, and I would say that especially for management council, it's sometimes there's 400 pages of material, 400 and up, along with so the meeting is a day and a half, so you have to be prepared. And quite honestly, there's no way I could drag 400 pieces of paper back and forth to Indianapolis. So you upload it, and then you just I would say my flights have been my friend. I spend the entire flight working. One of the trips I was on, the person who sat behind me finally came up to me when we were getting off the plane, and she said, "Did you get all your work done? Because you were working hard." And I was like, yes, but it's 2 hours that I could just completely focus on what needed to be digested and read and prepared for the meetings the next day. So you just learn, as I said, to carve out those small periods of time when you can get a lot done in a little bit of time.
Those are like a whole semester's worth of classes in your 2-day meeting.
Exactly.
It's interesting.
Exactly.
Now, you think about some of the commonalities in the industry as a whole, all of college athletics. And then you think about you being the chair of the NCAA Division II Management Council, which has a focus on Division II and what's important to Division II. What are some of the things, I guess, the thoughts and concerns that keep Division II athletic directors, staffs, coaches, even student athletes up at night? And how are some of those things common to what everybody else in the rest of the NCAA divisions are dealing with?
I would say that there is a lot of overlap, even between Divisions 1, 2, and 3, about the big issues. We always worry about resources. We worry about our budgets. We worry about enrollment. And the bigger issues for our student athlete are the student athlete mental health and the Title IX and how we're going to manage all these things in one 24-hour period, because that's basically what we do every day. We come in and then, we manage our budgets. We talk to our student athletes, and we try to plan and do what's best for them. But I would say that beyond the issues, I worry about, my staff and my student athletes. As you said in the very beginning, they're why we do what we do. And I want to make sure they're having the best experience possible. And I would venture to say that's also a commonality through all 3 divisions, is just how do we leverage that student-athlete experience and make sure that everyone feels like they're part of a family and that we celebrate our wins and we celebrate one another. So, at the end of the day, my takeaway would be, how can I make the student-athlete experience better at Rollins? What can I do differently? And how can I just leverage our resources to make it what it can be?
All right. Is there anything specific to Division II? I asked that question because I talked to an athletic director recently, and he talked about the lack of football institutions on the West Coast type thing in Division II. And so, are there any specific broad things that Division II specifically are concerned with or always focusing on, I guess?
Yeah, and I would say it's more of what we're constantly focusing on. It's more the life and the balance, and that's kind of been our mantra over the last, I would say, almost decade is, how do we make sure that our student athletes are students first and athletes second, and how can we protect their, practice time and their time, their 24 hours in a day to make them able to be a really good student and a really good athlete. And I think we've done great in Division II with our legislation and, being mindful of the playing and practice seasons and the length and the hours when you're out of season that you can put in with your team. So I would say those are things that we've done really, really well in Division II, and I think that's what's going to keep us going as a division, is just providing that balanced approach.
All right, that's excellent information. I'll ask one final question here, and this is for people listening who would probably want to get involved on the level that you're involved. And of course, that was a work in progress over the 26 years in college athletics. But if I'm someone looking to be an athletics director or looking just to have a successful career in college athletics, how do I get involved with committees and organizations and things such as the things you're involved in, while you're younger, in the middle of your career, and then as you progress to various leadership roles?
Oh, that's a great question. And I would say when you're younger and you're just getting started, I tell a lot of my student athletes that, say, well, how can you become an athletic director? And I said, well, you have to start by just volunteering. As a student athlete, there's a lot that you can do within the athletics department that you're a student athlete in, just volunteer for some game management duties. And then as you go on and you finish your career and you might have your first role at the institution, make sure you continue with that volunteering piece, because that's honestly how I did it, was just working championships, working a conference championship, volunteering, spreading my knowledge base so I wasn't so focused on my one specific area, and that helped me grow as I became a professional. And then as you rise through the different ranks in athletics, ask your AD to put you on committees, whether they're conference committees or institutional committees, because those are important as well, just to start that committee service and learning how to serve on a committee and have a voice. And then once you continue to grow and develop through the conference structure and become the AD, continue to put your name out there for committee service. And that's what I did even at like Women Leaders. What entry-level committee can I be on? And that worked for me. And then I've eventually become on the board of Women Leaders. Same thing with NACDA, the Division II Athletic Directors Association. How can I get started there? And now I'm on the NACDA Executive Committee. We didn't talk about that either. But those opportunities of just putting your name out there and saying, I want to help, I am interested, let me volunteer, let me have a role at convention. And then eventually you will just continue to grow and find those positions available.
Pennie, that's excellent advice, and it seems to have worked out for you. And I'd imagine that the people in Division II, specifically the people at Rollins, consider you an asset and are lucky to have you involved the way you're involved. I really appreciate you joining us here on One Question.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I enjoyed speaking with you today.
That was Pennie Parker. She's the Director of Athletics at Rollins College, and she's also the Chair of the NCAA Division II Management Council. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.